Hi, I'm Nicholas Sperling. Welcome back to my channel. I'm not feeling very well today and I was really struggling to figure out what I wanted to talk about. And when I'm sick, I really struggle a lot with my mental health, and so I thought that would be a good thing to focus on. One of the main issues for me, or one of the things that really sparked my depression and my anxiety, was my gender dysphoria. And that is when you have this internal sense of being that differs from the gender identity that you were assigned at birth. So for me, I knew all my life, at least as early as about grade 1, that something didn't feel right. I didn't have the words to put to it. It's a very difficult thing to try to explain, but it's something that I dealt with for a very long time until I discovered that I was trans. And you can see my video about my coming out story, and I talk about what was involved in coming to terms with the fact that I'm trans. But the gender dysphoria was a big piece of that. It's really difficult to try to explain to people unless you've been through it. You really don't know what it's like, but it goes well beyond any cultural norms or gender stereotypes. It doesn't matter what toys you play with. It doesn't matter how you dress. None of that relates to your gender identity. It relates perhaps to your gender expression, but your gender identity is separate from that. The other thing that some people with gender dysphoria deal with is body dysmorphia. And you may deal with issues of body dysmorphia without dealing with issues of gender dysphoria and vice versa. But for me, I dealt with a little bit of both. And body dysmorphia is when you're not comfortable with the body that you're in. There are parts of your body that just don't feel right. It's really difficult to be at peace with yourself when you're not comfortable in this vehicle that you're inhabiting for life, your body. So for me, a big step in addressing my depression and my anxiety was to start transitioning. So one of the pieces that I mentioned was anxiety, and this is something that I still struggle with. I do have a lot of anxiety around work-related things, whether that's finances or deadlines, and that spreads into my personal life as well. But a big part of it is social anxiety, and that is how I navigate the world when I'm in public settings. I'm a bit of an introvert. I find it very difficult to be in social settings, and a lot of what I'm constantly thinking about in my head is how am I being perceived by others. And I grew up acting like a guy. I was very good at that. I became very comfortable in my ability to act like a guy for the most part, but when I started transitioning, that was thrown for a loop because I had no idea how I was supposed to act or dress as a woman. I had no idea how my friends and family were going to react to me transitioning. I had no idea how I was going to be treated in different public spaces. And for quite a while, it was very difficult to be in those public settings. And it still is, but it's less and less so as time goes on. That's not to say that I didn't deal with issues of social anxiety before transitioning. They were just amplified in the beginning stages of my transition. And now I'm settling into who I am, and they're less of an issue, but there's still something that I'm struggling with and that I'm trying to work through. The way that I deal with social anxiety is by making sure that I'm doing everything possible to be confident in every change that I make. So every time I'm making a change in my life, I want to become comfortable with that change before moving on to the next thing. And it's those gradual steps that have really helped me to overcome some of that social anxiety. And I've done this with my transition. I've taken a little bit longer than some people to transition, and that's because every time I made a change to my physical appearance, to the way that I'm acting, any of that, I wanted to be as confident as possible in the way that I was going about that. The other thing that I've come to terms with is that just about everything in our lives is a social construct. And the way that I think I should live my life, the way other people think I should live my life, is based on all of these social constructs. And I don't like to live my life that way. So I try to just do the things that make me happy. I try to live my life the way I want to, regardless of what kind of exterior pressures there might be. And that's really helped me with working on my social anxiety as well, because as I become confident in just being me and not being a version of me that I think other people want to see, I become more confident in my ability to move through this world as a unique individual rather than constantly focusing on how I'm acting and how I'm behaving and how other people are going to perceive me. So depression is the other piece of this. I deal with both anxiety and depression, and depression hits me in moments like this when I'm sick and I'm constantly focusing on the negatives because I'm just not feeling well. And that's where my brain goes is, oh, well, this is one thing that's going wrong in my life. Here are all these other things that are going wrong in my life as well, rather than focusing on the positives in my life. And the way that I've been trying to deal with that is, one, by transitioning, because starting on hormones and socially transitioning has been a very rewarding experience for me, and it's really helped me to be more comfortable in who I am and to be happier in who I am. But it doesn't make depression go away on its own. There were a lot of things that I tried before transitioning that were temporary fixes. Transitioning's been a much more permanent fix, but it doesn't solve it completely. So some of the things that I'd done before were traveling, wearing colorful clothes, playing activities, or driving, where I would get a sense of joy from it, even though it was just a momentary sense of joy. That would help me to address depression in kind of a short-term sense. But in terms of addressing it in the long term, that's where transitioning came in. And then something that I've been focusing on much more recently is addressing all the negative talk that happens in my head. And this is something that the vast majority of us deal with. We're putting ourselves down in our heads. We're saying all sorts of negative things about ourselves, being self-deprecating, making jokes at our expense. We like to put ourselves down. We doubt ourselves. That's a natural response, I would say, but it's not helpful. If you're constantly criticizing yourself, that's not helping you to improve, it's just putting you down and making you feel worse. You can acknowledge something that could have been done better, that you could have done differently, without being extremely hard on yourself. So the thing that I've been really focusing on lately is catching myself when I start saying something negative about myself and saying, no, you're awesome. And it's just a really quick and easy way to try to stop that negative conversation. You're still having those negative thoughts, but you're cutting them off and you're replacing them with something positive. You're saying something positive about yourself. And what I've discovered through doing that is the more I do it, the less I'm actually having these kinds of negative thoughts about myself, to the point where right now I very rarely say anything negative about myself. There are still instances where I do, but again, I'll shut them down and I'll say, no, you're awesome. Stop saying that about yourself. And it's been helping immensely in terms of dealing with my depression. So I really don't experience depression very often anymore, and that's one of the big reasons why. Now, I'm talking about my own experiences primarily because I'm not an expert. I'm not someone that's going to be able to give you advice on what to do. What you need to do for yourself is find someone who is an expert who's going to be able to help you with this if you're struggling with mental health issues. But maybe I've said something that clicks with you that you're going to be able to work on. And if that's the case, that's great. I personally don't take any kinds of medication for my mental health issues, but again, speak with your healthcare professional. Maybe you can address mental health issues in a similar way to what I've done, or maybe you do need some medication. There's nothing wrong with approaching your mental health issues one way or the other. And if there's one thing that you can take away from this video, I hope it's that self-care is extremely important. There's nothing more valuable in your life in terms of being able to be successful and happy than making sure that you're in a good place with your mental health. So I hope this video has helped you. I know it's helped me to talk about it. If this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, please make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified every time I post a video. And if you have suggestions for future videos, or you want to touch on this subject in particular, please leave your comments down below. I make sure I read through all of them and I really enjoy your feedback. And until next time, have a great day.